So the other thing that was fun to pick up here on EPL this week at least, because obviously they were the first two groups or the first 2 weeks, and then they were like, oh, something's going to change, going into the next one, and it turns out that Sado has made a return. And so when they originally did the whole like guess who, for the fourth caster, that's when I said this is going to be Sado. He's worked with EPL in the past. He's worked with ESL. I could see him doing it because Sponge needs a co-caster. He's the analyst. You're going to want to play by play. Put him in there. I thought that was going to be the play. Turns out I got juked on that one. It was Henry. But then everybody, comes back into it expecting it to see the return, right, of Sado and Henry, and I was like, dude, there's no way. There's no way this is going to happen. And sure enough, they have brought Sado and Henry back into it, but they are not casting together.
There you go.
And so because already, I don't know. I don't think that there is that much public in the sense that like, it was tough for Henry. Henry had to take a lot of shit when he was casting with Sado in a sense, because there was definitely like Sado for a period there wasn't the easiest guy to work with.
Oh, no
and
doubt.
So there was a lot going on. So I was very curious to see like when Henry made his return to casting, but then I was like, okay, it's Malta. They, it's ESL, it's Malta. Alex and Henry and Machine, they live in Malta full time. So okay, like I guess like they managed to figure it out. But for them to bring Sado in and for that still not to be a thing, I was a little bit surprised by that. So I didn't know if you had any juicy takes on it or not. But that was just like a fun detail because dude, talk about a tease for the fans out there. You're gonna have Sado and Henry casting, but not together.
That's the problem, though. When you say that last part, like they're both brilliant casters separately, two of the greatest of all time. But when you say it separately, that does take some of the magic out. Because what you want is the duo back. Because I always used to say this, Semmler. People don't know this, right? Look, almost none of the actual casting duos are best friends, by the way, guys. Some of them actually, most of them start as acquaintances and become friends over time, or you get like good working relationship. But it's really hit and miss. Like I know, because this is what people will never understand. On-camera rapport is very different from like off-camera being a friend to someone. That doesn't make sense to a fan because you never tried being in this world and how weird and ephemeral and illusory it is. So. Yeah, and so basically what I would say is like I always used to actually actively credit on camera that the reason why I think they're the best duo ever is because I know how chalk and cheese they can be as people, as professionals, as how they view the cast, what they want to do. But somehow it was one of those crazy like Lennon and McCartney things where when you make it work though, it's just fire in it. Like what comes out is incredible. So I just think if you just look at the actual result, it just shows they were one of the best. But yeah, it sucks a little bit because the idea they're both going to be like in the same room or building, but they're not. They can't just both be on the same mic. That does feel a bit BS. And also the reason why, this is why I said it on Twitter, the reason that I hate it is this. You're all going to think, well, I had Marfil at HenryG and said because I had loads of tournaments. Not many majors, mate. Not many major finals. You definitely didn't miss that many of them. We're coming up to something like, I think, isn't this like the 18th or 19th major? If you say that many majors, Semmler, people are going to be really naive and one fancy, 18 or 19. Well, Anders and Semmler must have done the first 7 finals together. Then what was it? Henry and Shadow for the next 5. And then I guess Bardolph would be in there somewhere. And then after that, I guess you came to the others. Like, no, not at all, mate. Like, first of all, the first sort of like 6 to 7 to 8 were just scuffed as fuck as these casters were. Like, TOs would just make it playing God with all the fucking duos. There weren't duos properly, or at least you couldn't always do it at the major then.
Yeah, like what, 3 or 4? Yeah. First, yeah, because then it was D-Man who was still in, and then Henry casted with Anders and D-Man, I believe.
Yeah, that would make sense. I think Tosh did one with some of you, right?
That was definitely a wild. Year when that shit was popping off. The other one was it wasn't Anders. Was
there was one with like Sean Gares and maybe like.
Yeah,
you and someone
no, it wasn't me. It was Anders. That was Katowice, I think.
Sean Gares and Tosspot, maybe.
And Stupot? No, I can't remember. Like Stupot was in one.
He did the first one, DreamHack Winter.
He did the 2013, right? Exactly, with Tommy.
I think he might have done an ESL one because they were big with him too.
Yeah, no, it was interesting. Like we were casting everything, but we weren't getting to do the finals. And then, of course, it all came down to who was actually running the major as well. So then you would have the tournament politics come into play as well as in terms of like who is working primarily with this TO. And so you would have, if it was an ESL major, then if there were ESL casters, primarily they would be the ones picked for it. PGL had theirs. Face It obviously was Bardolph and DDK. So you had to take that into account as well on top of everything else. ESL were intentionally doing everything that they could to make sure that like it was all intentional at the beginning in terms of like fucking with duos. And I think they succeeded ultimately because I don't think that any of the duos today had like had the clout that Anders and I had at the beginning
No.
when we really started to hit our stride. But like ESL, they made it very clear. And I mean, I don't know if like what's the statutes of limitations on it. Like, how long do you hold on to something? But like, I won't name names, but like I have had ESL people tell me we're never letting a Tasteless and Artosis happen again. Like we're never letting that happen again, because Tasteless and Artosis were just the peak, and they could also ask anything they wanted from a TO, and the TO had to bend over and give it to them. They had that much clout, that much power in the StarCraft 2 scene in terms of casting. And so ESL were straight up like, we're never letting that happen to you and Anders. And it was like, fine, fair enough, but now we know where we stand, and so we're going to negotiate really hard with you. And so that's why, you know, casters get paid as much as they do today, is because Anders and I went to the fucking wall, and we were just like, let's go then. If that's how it's going to be, let's see how far we can go. And so we raised everybody's rates, and then, you know, one ship goes up, everybody else, you know, like the rising tide raises all ships. So everybody benefited from that. But that was also, you know, like ESL just playing that kind of game where they're like, oh yeah, well, we're going to try and screw you over. And we're like, fine, okay, then, you know, like, then it's a back and forth, you know, then okay, then we'll see where this goes. But at that time, it very much was like ESL. It's funny that you remind me of this sort of thing, because it's like at the time that was specifically from ESL trying to make sure that there were no duos. That was them trying to really take the wind out and make it so that they could play us against each other. And again, this is wrapping back into why we're all so fucking neurotic in the caster scene, and why there's always this drama going on, is because you have to think about years of pressure, and just you're trying to work with your friends, but you're working with your friends, right? And it's not, and you don't know who's going to be there, who's undercutting who's double dealing anything, you know, who's talking to this TO while this TO's over here, like what's next year? Because keep in mind as well, remember, it's not like you're signing a year-long contract or a 2-year contract or a 3-year contract or whatever. There's like some security there. At the beginning of CS, dude, it was brutal. You didn't know if you were working week to week. So you're just constantly hustling, trying to stay in touch with the TOs, who knows what. It was one of the driving forces behind why we made Room on Fire, so that we could try to actually have some security from casters and do like group deals, you know, try to make it so that, okay, well, what about a set of tournaments? You know, like let's try and plan ahead, you know, because this is a thing. Maybe we could do like several tournaments ahead instead of it just literally being week to week, finding out whether you're working or not. So it was very, there's a lot of pressure and a lot of stress involved. That also, you know, it's like, oh yeah, you're literally competing with your friends who you're spending all of your time with at you know, because you're never home. You're always at an event. So you're spending all of your time with those people. So it's like, go figure why we're all a little bit fucked in the head all these years later. What's fun is like, is all these
I'll
years
tell you
later,
who did transcend though, because you named him earlier. Here's the angle you're missing though. One person who did transcend, right? Remember, Alex can do anything ESL he wants. Machine, I'm talking about here. Why is he not doing Pro League? Because he's actually reached the status, if you don't know, guys, because he's not just one of the best hosts in Counter-Strike in all of esports, and he's done TI in Dota 2, he's done League of Legends, LEC, etc. He's at the level now where he can either just choose to take events off, or he can just, I would imagine behind the scenes, pure speculation, have insane leverage. Like maybe he looks at Pro League and goes, you know what, it's not like it's going to end with a giant stadium event, it's not going to be one of the greatest moments of my life, I'm there for the big moments in CS, maybe I'll skip this one, maybe I'll go chill out for a while, maybe it's his holiday, maybe I do LEC when it was still on, maybe I'll wait for another event. Like he's the one who basically got out of the rat race to some degree.
Well,
he's got that shock status. Yeah.
But this is the thing is man, it really depends on like how close you want to fly to the sun, because it's definitely not taking anything away from Machine in that sense. But this whole diversity aspect that's being pushed right now is also really helpful, and it just depends. And the reason I say this is because I've literally had these kind of conversation with other talent in the past who have used this to negotiate for more money, whereas before they wouldn't have a certain amount of money. You know, they specifically used pressure tactics along the diversity lines to leverage more money out of TOs and leverage more money. So I mean, like, it's just a reality, whether you like it or not. It's just the way that things are right now. And that's not to take anything away from Alex. It's the same thing about like affirmative action, whether do you actually earned what you got or not? Is it just given to you based on characteristics that you have no control over, or did you, through your hard work and effort and talent, actually get what it is? You'll never know, because if that's a thing, you'll never know. So that's the real poison of affirmative action and all these sorts of things. It's the true cancer that'll eat away at you because you don't know. And so I fucking hate it. Alex is one of the most talented guys in the space. And another reason why he is the most talented guy, or one of the most talented guys in the space, is that he has done all the roles. He's done something that we've talked about for years in that. So still to this day, when somebody asks me like, oh, how do I get involved? I'm like, you do anything, dude. You journalist, you interview, you host, I don't care if you're the sideline host, you do whatever you can to get more experience, because it's all going to be helpful down the line, because it just broadens out your portfolio. You have more roles that you can offer to a TO. And so maybe you can't cast this event, but you can do their interviews, or you can stage host, or you can desk host, or you can do all these sorts of things. And guess what? Alex has done all that now. So he can literally just walk into any TO at this point, any event, and just be like, yeah, I've done all of these roles. Here's my reel. You can see me in any of them. Pick, right? So he's got an insane flex. It's really sick to see. So you may be right in that respect, but it is one thing that I've thought about in the past in terms of just like where it was, especially when the Stockholm Major got announced and all those fucking assholes got involved and just started saying like this race or sex or whatever the fuck, like just absolute degenerate scum, coming in and making that a thing when everybody on there had chops and everybody on there. And then, man, that really fucking pissed me off, because then Freya shows up and Freya was literally saying like, is this going to stain me being there? Am I here because I earned it? Which she is fucking good enough. It's like, am I here because I earned it or because I'm a girl? Then again, because that's brought up, it then makes a person who deserves to be there based on the work and talent start questioning themselves. It's like, oh, is it, did I truly get in, based on chops? I despise it. It really pisses me off to think about all this sort of stuff. It's so disgusting. But, hey, you and I, just a couple of, woman haters, aren't we? So, I don't know. It really is a mad world. I can't even remember how we got onto this tangent. But
we're just talking about Henry and Sado.
Yeah, it was Henry and Sado, right? But there is a lot to talk about that sort of thing. And then it still feels like you're still kind of treading the line in terms of like what's behind doors and like what you can talk about. And it's still out there. But we could hop into a different topic then. There is one actually that is pretty fun, because I guess that is
the joke being, of course, one thing we did forget is if there was any caster likely to needlessly interject race into a cast, it would be Sadokist. That's fucking, because he's got a one-track match. No, whatever. You get skip next topic. Dude. It's just the Gong Show 24/7 when I'm on streams. You have to understand.
No, but that is the fucking meme, isn't it?
It's pretty good. Not bad. Want to see more cool, funny, interesting clips based on topics from my content? Well, subscribe to this channel then, or, be a pleb and don't.